going on, YouTube? It's been a while since I did a video. Welcome back to the homestead. Today we're going to do a little garden tour. I've actually had most of this stuff in the ground for quite a while, especially here in the high tunnel. And I haven't done a video, but we kind of walk through here real quick, and I'll try not to ramble too much. Just show you what I got going on and how I'm doing it and all that kind of stuff. If you've seen my other videos, maybe you've seen the video where I build these raised beds out of IBC totes. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. I've been doing this for several years now in these totes, and it works absolutely fantastic. So we're here in the high tunnel, and it's later in the evening, so the sun may kind of give us a little fit here in the background, but we'll do what we can to not blind you too much. I'm gonna turn you around here. So this area right here is an area that I normally in the winter would bring my pigs into, and I've left, you can see I've left the panels up, and a gate goes on that end there, and but in the summertime, or spring and summer, I just throw what extra tomato plants or pepper plants or just kind of whatever extra that I have, I throw in here in the ground. And so these are actually the tomato plants that didn't look quite as good before I planted them, and I think they're doing pretty well. They're looking pretty good in here. Some better than others. That one hasn't been in the ground quite as long. Looks like we got something going on with the leaves there. I'm not really sure, but you know, some of them don't do better than others. I just kind of let these do their thing. I don't do a whole lot to them, and I just kind of let them do their thing there. I've got kind of a mess going on. I've still got tree seeds to plant, and I'm way late planting them, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And I've got these tree tubes I'm going to try this year. Now the acorns, walnuts, and pecans are already planted. I'm going to show you those in a second. This will be trees like Chinese pistache, maple, stuff like that, with more seeds rather than like nuts. So I've kind of got a mess. I actually never did get all these. I didn't get all these totes filled in with soil. I got wood chips in there. We just not really wanting to spend the money right now on the soil. So I stuck these wimpy little tomato plant, well, that's out of focus. Stuck these wimpy little tomato plants in there, and there's like no soil. So I mixed a little chicken manure in, composted chicken manure in with the wood chips. I'm just gonna let them grow, see what they do. I got some blueberry plants in, haven't put those in containers yet. So a lot of these on this end are just empty, or they have these kind of junk tomatoes in. I'm just gonna let them go, see what they do. Here's my tree beds here. I had a really poor turnout with these couple rows here of pecans. Hardly anything germinated. And so it just so happened that a friend of mine, she was doing some cleanup at her grandmother's house, and they had all these pecan seedlings coming up out of the ground, just natural. They were already sprouted. So she called and said, hey, I've got all these, seedlings. Now this one's not looking great, but the stem is okay. I think they'll bounce back. The ones that look kind of poor right now, I think they'll bounce back. And those are mostly pecan. There is some oaks in there. Let's see, these are walnuts. Had an okay germination. There's some that are just now breaking ground. So I'm hoping maybe some more of them will come around, but those are from Fort Sill Army Post here in Oklahoma. From the, it's called the old NCO housing. It's kind of it's a historic type building there on Post, and there's a walnut tree out there, and so that's where those are from. Let's go to this one here. These were from the parade field at Fort Sill, and I'm pretty certain something got in here and ate those, but there's a whole bunch of them. You can see a pack rat, something got to those before they sprouted, and they're done. That was from the parade field. These rows here those are great big acorns from I believe they're live oaks from the Fort Sill Cemetery. So that's cool. I'm really happy that some of those made it and germinated. These are water oaks from our property here, and I think every dang one of these things sprouted, doing great. There's more down here, and then a bunch of pin oaks. But you can see all the acorn shells laying around, and I'm pretty sure that's pack rats or mice. Not really sure, but you know, that's life. So I've got peppers, tomatoes, more pepper. This is chamomile. Some potatoes, tomatoes. Just look at these babies already. Not bad. We're looking pretty good there. I've got a bed of onions. This is bee balm, I think. Looks like it needs some fertilizer. This is a fig tree. I'm hoping that it'll give me some figs this year. I haven't got any figs off of that. We'll see. Here's the remainder of my tomato plants. I've got another bed over here. These are ones I started from seed, and I've up potted these into a nice big pot, and those things are probably 30 inches tall. Probably hard to see on the video, but really doing well. I'm actually giving all these away. I just had 2 different friends leave with a front seat full of tomato plants. Those are the cuttings that I took of my lavender plants when I pruned, and they're doing really, really good, really well. They need to be planted. Cuttings of grapevines over there. These are hazelnuts here, of course rosemary, and then a bunch of the oak trees that I planted. Those are from last year, so I put them in bigger pots, and I'm going to see how they do like with that. So over here is more plants that I haven't planted out yet. Peppers, basil, some more tomato plants. These are looking kind of spindly, but I think they just needed to be in the ground about a month or more ago. Soap plant, I talked about that in some other videos. A friend of mine shared a little cutting of that, or a few little cuttings of that last year, and that thing's just gone crazy. But the plant is used, the flowers, the leaves, everything is used, or it's said to be had been used by the Native Americans to make soap. I've never done it, but I thought it's a cool plant, and you never know. It'd be nice to have. Some comfrey. This stuff is kind of you can chop and drop, use it as like a nitrogen fertilizer, or they say it has like a herbal healing properties, heals wounds and different things. I'm just growing that for fun. More tomato plants. Looking pretty good. Looks like I got some aphids. So if you can see, I'm going to try to not blind you out here zooming in and out, but you can see these little bugs right there. those are aphids. And they'll put kind of an oily residue on plants. They're sucking all the juice out of it, and they'll kill a plant. So I've got to put out some, I use aphid traps. It's a sticky substance. So I need to get that out. That's a lemon tree. You can see the frame where I had it covered with plastic, kind of a greenhouse inside of the greenhouse for the winter, and it did well. So hopefully we'll get lemons eventually. Onions on both sides here. Lavender. This is squash or zucchini. Can't remember. That is the opposite of this one, either squash or zucchini. Asparagus beds. Now these are immature beds here. The second one over there, this is the first year for it, so I'm not harvesting anything out of that. This one is the third year, so I did harvest some out of this, and now I'm letting it fern out, which this is what ferning out is this stuff. And then these bigger stalks, these will get ferns on them as well. And I've talked about this in numerous videos, but you have to let your asparagus do that so it absorbs the energy for next year's spears. You know, it puts the energy back in the roots, and that's where you get next year's spears. So, but there's still some newer spears in there that are looking tasty. I can still pick some of those out of there, but I've got several patches, so no big deal. Those are hot peppers of some type. I've got markers, but I don't want to dig them out of there. I think those are poblanos, actually. Here's my junk pile. Everyone has to have a junk pile, right? These are spare pots, some old plastic, some irrigation lines, some drainage pipe. You know, all the regular junk. Oklahoma's been having some crazy weather and a lot of rain. And I'm not sure if you can see, this is it's not a big pond by any means, but it's the bigger of the two ponds we have. And you can see way out here, there's a drain pipe. And that thing is still, even with all the rain we've had the past several weeks, that thing is probably still, let me see if I can zoom in there. Yeah. You can see it out there. It's still probably 4 foot low. I can hardly believe it. But 4 more feet of water, that pond looks way bigger than it does now. So, these are jalapenos. Either squash or zucchini, can't remember which. More onions, some flowers just to bring in pollinators. Here's my one little strawberry plant. Oh, look at there. My friend Rita, the professional strawberry grower, would be so proud. Rita, if you're watching this, I hope you're proud of me. And I want to eat that thing right now. Oh my word. Wow. That's not like you buy in the store. That's a whole different kind of fruit. That's so much better. This is my rhubarb. No, normally I thought rhubarb would come further out of the ground. My mom, in our farmhouse I grew up in, had a ton of rhubarb. And it always came up out of the ground, 2 or 3 feet. The stalks were real long. So maybe it just takes time. I don't know. Mom, if you're watching, let me know. Text me. More tomatoes. We're looking pretty good, man. Looking pretty good. That's a goji berry bush, and it's in a pot actually. And over the winter, the roots went into the soil. That is going to get transplanted to my orchard. But maybe not till next year now. It's a little warm. to transplant stuff, so I may have to wait till next year. Look at these things. And I like to do all different varieties. Some early producing, which is, these are beefsteak. Beefsteak aren't necessarily super early producing. I've got some other ones that are 4th of July. Now they're a smaller tomato, but they produce real early. So when you're planting your, say, tomatoes, you want to think about the maturity date, and it should be on the tag if you're buying them at a store or whatever. It'll say days to maturity. So I like to have it spread out, right? So your season is longer of harvesting. That is a little sprout coming up there. That's turmeric. And then I got some herbs, chamomile, some basil. That is a pomegranate tree. I just got that in the mail, planted that a few weeks ago. Now that'll it's a hardy pomegranate, but that will probably still have to have kind of the setup over there with the frame and the second layer of plastic, just to ensure that it survives. And there's no guarantee, obviously, of that, but I mean, it's fun. It's fun to try to grow new things, and you know, if it doesn't make it, well, then I know I probably shouldn't plant it again. Now here's the outside. Now the stuff in the high tunnel, here has been in the ground obviously much longer than the stuff outside here in the open air. But I think I planted most of this out here about 2 weeks ago. Maybe less than 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. And I mean, so far it is just looking pretty crummy. Now we've had some, you know, large rain amounts, which plants don't like all the water at once. We've also had high winds. We've had some small hail. So far we've been pretty lucky this year. We're not completely out of the clear, you know, with the weather, the hazardous type weather, you know, high winds, tornadoes, hail. You know, in this part of the country, it will go. Well, last year we had into July, we had some really bad hailstorms in July, and I virtually had very, very little produce outside of my high tunnel from last year because of that. Very mature plants just got decimated with hail, and they just never really rebounded. It was pretty bad. So we're not out of the clear, but we've been really lucky. If you haven't seen the news or you don't live in Oklahoma, the past 2 weeks have been devastating. Towns wiped out by I think the biggest one was an EF4 tornado. It's been a rough go for a lot of Oklahomans, and I know the other states as well, but obviously, you know, when it's in your own state or closer to home, it's a little bit more personal, you know. But anyways, we're not completely out of the clear, or in the clear, but don't know if it's the weather or if it's, some of it kind of looks possibly like overspray. We're kind of surrounded by neighborhoods now, and, you know, nice manicured lawns. I don't know, you know, maybe it's just overspray, and it's just enough that it's just really stunting these things. But I'm gonna turn you around, we'll take a look at the outside garden and get this wrapped up. All right, so I've got some pepper plants all along here, and those things look about the same as they did when they were still in the pot, only a little bit of added bug pressure here in the leaves. So they look even worse. Hadn't grown a bit, I don't think. But These plants probably look the worst out of all of them. And it does look like there's a little bug pressure on some of this. They just look really, really wimpy, just really bad. So I never did finish this project. I think I'm just gonna plant some sweet corn in there. I was gonna make this a chicken run with a coop and put some of my birds out here, but I think the plans changed, so I don't know. Here I've got some peppers, some tomatoes. Those are potatoes in the middle. Looks like one of the dogs jumped in there and dug a, it's probably hard to see on the video, but looks like they dug up one of those seed taters and made a big hole in there, but that's all right. And then the rest of this is garlic. So more of the same, except cucumbers. And those need to be thinned. I'll pick the best ones and thin the rest. And I usually try to grow them up over this cattle panel. And then on this side is the same thing, some cucumbers. This is more cucumbers. I'm doing some, I kind of ran out of real estate here. I ran out of, beds and garden space, so I stuck them in these big pots. Now these tomatoes have been in the ground. I put these ones in these containers quite some time ago, rolling the dice to see if it was going to be enough freezing weather or frost weather that I'd lose them. So these two I put in the ground much sooner than the rest of these, and obviously we didn't have bad enough weather to kill them off, and these seem to be doing really well. We're looking good there, so maybe just with time they'll snap out of it. So I've got I had to replace a stock tank, 2 of them actually, and so the old ones come out here. They'll be new garden beds eventually. These apple trees, these are columnar apples. Columnar, or sometimes they call them urban apples. And they just kind of grow straight up. They don't branch out a whole lot. They won't get any wider than like 4 feet or so. So they stay real compact. So I thought here in the garden, it actually will give a little bit of beneficial, like in the heat of the afternoon, give a little beneficial shade as the sun passes over. These were some polar berry plants that I transplanted, clearly too late because they look dead. Here's another one here. Little green. I'll probably cut off all the brown stuff and they'll snap out of it. But yep. Got some apples to thin here. I'll probably thin out these little ones. Sorry, that was probably too close. But yeah, you can see like these little ones here that, that needs to come off. There's another one. So there's one that didn't get pollinated well enough. You can kind of see how it's kind of deformed. Pull that off. Anyway, I can come through here and just kind of thin these out as I'm working. So blackberries and raspberries, they'll grow from underneath the ground, with shoots. So I have found if I keep them in containers, you can kind of limit where they go. So that's some raspberries, looking real good there. Let's see. Yeah, this area is such a mess, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Projects change, or my ideas change, so that'll be sweet corn. This here will be okra. I just hadn't planted it yet. And then got more squash and zucchini, more here, more there. My asparagus, I'm done for the year. These 3 beds here are real immature, so I'm letting them develop their root systems. So I didn't cut hardly any spears out of those. And this is a really old bed, and it seems like production is way down. Now, I've never fertilized this or anything, so that's probably why. An asparagus bed that's properly maintained will last a long time. So I'm going to let this fern out and do its thing for the rest of the year, and then fertilize it in the spring, see if we can recharge that thing. I've got grapes growing on this back fence. Seems to be doing okay. They always start off looking good like this, but I very rarely get a decent crop of grapes. I'm not really sure why. Back here, well, I know why. It's because I don't spray anything on them. Back here is a hazelnut. This is a hazelnut shrub, but you can see there's hazelnuts already on there developing. Let's see here, more there. Now that's a more mature, and that's a shrub type hazelnut. This one here is more of a, this one here is more of a tree type hazelnut that's got like a main stem. It won't get huge, but this is in the northeast corner of my garden, so it won't shade anything out, won't hurt anything. So like I said, the stuff out here, oh, there's some lavender starting to bloom there. Boy, if you could smell that, wow. And that's bee balm there. Kind of looks like marijuana from a distance. It's not, it's bee balm and lavender. But let's see. Let's walk out to the front out here. This apple tree, I had an espalier apple tree on each side of this, and this side here is doing well. That side over there died. So these tomato plants are looking crummy. Not sure what's going on. But I planted all this landscaping originally to block the view of the pig pen behind it. So I'm standing on my driveway right now, and the pig pen is behind there. So I started doing just kind of a wall of landscaping, and some of it's edible stuff, some of it's herbs, some of it's just trees and flowers and whatnot. This is blackberries. Got some berries on there. This area up here is really unfinished. I get wood chips from a tree trimming company delivered to our property. And a lot of times there's logs or pieces of logs or whatever in there. So I've just been using them here and making kind of raised bed areas, as you can see, out of them. It's kind of my style, very imperfect, very rustic, very natural, whatever. That's kind of what I'm into. So I like it. I don't think it's Chief's favorite, but you know, it's free and we got to do something with it. So instead of just burning it all or whatever, this works out. It's not really good. It's not really good firewood. It's kind of junk wood typically. It's not a lot of oak or pecan or walnut. But I didn't even have dirt in there. I had garden scraps from last year, you can see. So I put these tomato plants in there because I ran out of places to plant them. And I just piled up some soil over them. What the heck, you know? They'll grow. I'm pretty confident they'll grow. This is an almond tree. I had one there and I had one there, and that one did not overwinter. You need 2 or more to pollinate, so won't have any almonds, but I'll have to get another one. This is a jujube tree. The limbs were real low, and last fall I really limbed this thing up because I was running into the limbs and about poking my eyes out, and they have thorns. Let me try to see. Well, I don't see any thorns right now, but believe me, they have thorns. So anyways, I've got some stuff to clean up, these pallets and panels, and I've got a few things left to plant, okra and sweet corn. But other than that, I think everything's in the ground, and we're just gonna see how things go. So with doing these raised beds like I showed in the high tunnel here, there's very, very few weeds that come up in there, very few. And with everything out here, with the thick layer of wood chips, I think they call this like the back to Eden gardening style with the wood chips like this. I really like it. Some people say, oh man, that's the worst, too much carbon, too much, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm not trying to grow anything in it. I'm using it for walkways. I'm using it to cover the ground so I don't have to weed anything. So there will be some weeds that will pop up. I just saw a little patch of grass right between those pallets back there. So there will be some stuff that pops up, but not a ton. And it's just easy to take care of. It's a lot better than mowing all this too. I just had a friend here and he picked up a bunch of tomato plants. And if you look right here, I'm gonna turn you around. If you look right here, it's pretty wet, but he spun out a little bit. And if you just move this soil just a little bit and look down in there, I mean, that's composting itself. You can look in this tire tread right here. Now that's not completely broken down yet, but it's not far. So I really like the wood chips. It's worked out for me. The only downfall, I guess, is once they start breaking down like I just showed you, then the weeds and everything wants to grow in it. So you kind of have to keep the actual wood chips, the rough wood chips, non-broken down. You have to have a layer of that on top. And that will prevent the majority of seeds from growing. So there is about once a year where, yeah, you got to put a weekend into it. Typically I do it in the early spring, and you just got to cover everything in 3 or 4 inches of wood chips. So, you know, this is a pretty big area. So it takes me a while, but you know, obviously you don't have to do this big of an area, and you could make things a lot more compact where the walkways are smaller and you wouldn't have to spread as much. But in my opinion, it is well worth it. It's just worked out really, really well for me. So the other blessing is we get every year we get I don't even know how many hundred, or probably more than 100 dump, the chipper truck loads, which is like a dump truck load of wood chips dumped when the tree trimming crews for the electric company are out in our area, this rural area. They know that I'll take as much wood chips as they'll dump. So whenever they're in this area, for the most part, they bring it here, and it's a huge deal. So I guess an alternative, if you didn't have that, you'd have to buy wood chips. You can buy it in bulk, buy a dump truck or whatever from a material supply place here in Oklahoma, central Oklahoma. We have Minnick Materials, and well, there's several, but anyways, I guess if I was having to buy all this wood chips, probably wouldn't be doing all this, but since it's free, it's worked out. So anyway, that is the garden so far this year, and I really hope this stuff outside here gets a kick starting and we get rolling. You probably noticed this big open area out here. I've still got beds to build out of these logs, and none of these out here have soil in them. There's some broken down wood chips, but for the most part, it's the scraps from last year's garden, the old tomato plants, the old, prunings from the lavender, just the different stuff like that are in those. And some of it's decomposed a little bit, but nowhere near as much as it needs to be. It's certainly not soil. But I'm just planting stuff in there anyway, because my alternative is to just compost it anyway. So it's not hurting anything. So anyway, if you haven't seen the orchard tour video that I did, I don't know, it's probably been a couple weeks ago now, watch that. I'll be doing some updates on that as well as the garden throughout the season. And I've got lots to show you, but I've been super busy, and sometimes videoing slows me down, and it kind of frustrates me, and I get lazy and I don't do it. So anyway, appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next video.